She was invisible. At least that's what everyone in the luxury hotel believed. A black maid in a pressed uniform, moving quietly through marble hallways where billion-dollar deals were whispered and power wore expensive cologne. No one looked at her twice. No one imagined she understood the conversations floating above her head. Until one phone call changed everything. In front of a wealthy millionaire known for his influence and arrogance, she answered in flawless Dutch. Calm, confident, undeniable. The room went still. Eyes shifted. Assumptions cracked. And in that single moment, the balance of power began to tremble. But what happened next wasn't admiration. It wasn't applause. It was something far more revealing. Why did her intelligence make him uncomfortable? And why did he insist on seeing her face after that call? What unfolded in that hotel suite would expose more than prejudice. It would reveal how fragile ego becomes when stereotypes collapse. And once he asked to see her, nothing would ever be the same. Her name was Amara, and most guests at the Grand Crescent Hotel never bothered to learn it. To them, she was simply part of the background, another uniform blending into polished floors and crystal chandeliers. Every morning before sunrise, she tied her hair back, pinned on her name tag, and stepped into a world where wealth moved fast and voices like hers were expected to stay quiet. Amara had not always dreamed of scrubbing marble bathrooms and turning down silk sheets. Back home, she had been the top student in her language program, fluent in Dutch after years of study and sacrifice. She once imagined working in international business, translating contracts, negotiating deals, bridging cultures. But life had other plans. Family responsibilities, immigration hurdles, and limited opportunities had narrowed her options. The hotel job was stable. It paid the bills. So she carried herself with dignity, even when guests barely met her eyes. Most days followed the same rhythm. Clean, restock, smile politely, disappear. She had grown used to the subtle glances, the assumptions, the way some guests clutched their belongings just a little tighter when she entered the room. It was nothing dramatic, just small cuts, repeated often enough to sting. That afternoon, the hotel buzzed with unusual energy. A high-profile millionaire had checked into the presidential suite. Managers whispered. Staff were warned to be extra careful. Amara was assigned to his floor. She didn't know it yet, but before the shift ended, a single phone call would pull her out of the shadows and force everyone to see her in a way they never expected. The presidential suite felt different from the rest of the hotel, quieter, heavier, charged with importance. Amara could sense at the moment she stepped onto the floor. Managers lingered longer than usual. Security stood straighter. Every staff member moved with rehearsed caution, as if one small mistake could cost them everything. Inside the suite, the millionaire was pacing while speaking sharply to someone on the phone. His voice carried authority, impatience, and the certainty of someone rarely challenged. Papers were spread across the glass table. International contracts, financial projections, documents stamped with foreign seals. He barely glanced at Amara as she began refreshing the room. To him, she was invisible. Then the phone rang again. He answered, irritation clear in his posture. Within seconds, his expression shifted. Confusion replaced confidence. The voice on the other end spoke rapid Dutch, precise, urgent, business critical. The millionaire hesitated. He responded in broken phrases, stumbling. His authority began to crack. Silence stretched. He looked around the room, frustration building. His eyes landed briefly on Amara, then dismissed her just as quickly. But the caller kept speaking, faster now. Deadlines were mentioned. Numbers were confirmed. A decision needed to be made immediately. And that was when Amara made a choice. She stepped closer, gently signaling that she understood. Without arrogance, without hesitation, she spoke in fluent, effortless Dutch. Clear, professional, confident. The air in the room shifted instantly. The caller relaxed. The conversation flowed. Complex clauses were clarified. Cultural nuances were explained. Within minutes, what had nearly collapsed into a costly misunderstanding was resolved. The millionaire stood frozen, Listening as the woman he had not even acknowledged moments earlier navigated a negotiation he could not handle himself. When the call ended, the silence was louder than before. But admiration didn't follow. Instead, suspicion crept into his expression. His eyes narrowed, scanning her as though trying to solve a puzzle that didn't make sense to him. A maid, black, immigrant, fluent in Dutch. It did not fit the story he had already written in his mind. His questions weren't spoken aloud, but they hung heavy in the room. How could she possibly know that language? What else had she understood before this moment? How long had she been listening? The power dynamic he was used to controlling had slipped, even if only slightly. And for someone like him, that loss, no matter how small, felt threatening. He straightened his jacket, reclaiming composure. Security outside the suite shifted closer after a subtle gesture from him. Amara felt the temperature drop, not physically but socially. The gratitude she expected never arrived. Instead, there was calculation in his stare. Moments later, management was called to the room. Whispers filled the hallway. Staff exchanged uneasy glances. Something about the situation felt wrong. What should have been a moment of recognition was turning into something else entirely. And when the millionaire quietly instructed the manager that he wanted to see her properly, the tone carried something far more dangerous than curiosity. Because this was no longer about language. It was about control. And the next move he made would determine whether Amara's intelligence became her triumph or her downfall. Management arrived quickly, their polished smiles tight with unease. The millionaire stood near the window, composed again, power restored to his posture. Amara remained still in the center of the suite, suddenly aware that every eye in the room was measuring her worth in silence. He began speaking, not with gratitude, but with cold precision. His concern, he implied, was security. How had a hotel Maid acquired such advanced language skills? Why had no one disclosed this? What else might staff members be capable of understanding while moving silently through private rooms filled with sensitive negotiations? The words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. Each sentence chipped away at her dignity, reframing her intelligence as a threat. Security stepped closer, not aggressively, but noticeably. The shift was subtle, humiliating. In seconds, her professionalism was twisted into suspicion. Her education became something dangerous. Her presence in that room, once invisible, now felt like an intrusion. Amara tried to steady her breathing. She had done nothing wrong. She had saved his deal, protected his reputation. But none of that seemed to matter. What unsettled him wasn't the misunderstanding she prevented. It was the collapse of the stereotype he had comfortably believed. A black maid was not supposed to outshine him. Not in his own suite. Not in front of his own business partners. Management asked her to step outside while they reviewed the situation. The hallway felt colder than ever before. Staff members avoided her eyes. Whispers spread faster than facts. In less than 10 minutes, the narrative had flipped. By the time she was called back in, the decision had already been made. She was being placed under investigation for violating guest boundaries. The charge was vague. The humiliation was not. Her act of competence had been rewritten as misconduct. And as she removed her name tag, hands steady but heart pounding, one truth settled in with crushing clarity. In that room, her intelligence was never the problem. It was the audacity to reveal it. Amara left the hotel that night without ceremony. Her uniform folded neatly in her bag, her access card deactivated before she reached the lobby doors. The same marble floor she had polished for months now reflected a different version of her. Not invisible, not small, but painfully aware of how quickly excellence could be turned into accusation. The investigation quietly concluded days later. No formale palegi. No admission of wrongdoing. Just a carefully worded notice stating that her services were no longer required. The millionaire's contract with the hotel continued without disruption. The deal she had helped secure moved forward, profitable and intact. But something else moved forward too. A co-worker who had witnessed the incident spoke up. Then another. The story spread beyond the hotel walls. First online, then across professional networks. People began asking uncomfortable questions. Why was her intelligence treated as a liability? Why did competence become suspicious when it came from someone who didn't fit the expected image of power? Amara eventually found work again, this time not cleaning rooms, but translating for a small international firm that valued her skills openly. The path wasn't easy, but it was hers. Still, the memory lingered. Not because she had been underestimated, that was familiar, but because the moment she shattered that assumption, the system tried to push her back into place. And that is the part that stays with us. Racism doesn't always shout. Sometimes it smiles, nods, and then quietly removes your name from the schedule. It questions your qualifications only after you prove them. It feels threatened not by failure, but by excellence. So the real question isn't whether Amara was qualified, it's why her brilliance felt dangerous in the first place. How many more doors close the moment stereotypes break? And when intelligence challenges prejudice, will we protect it or punish it?